So, Tim, one of our main issues here, mine on this show, is whether we're going to allow boys into girls' sports, whether we're going to support these Biden revisions to Title IX. It seems very clear that your opponent is 100% on the wrong side of all of these issues. He supported this terrible Equality Act. How can this be? How can a guy who represents Montana for 18 years be so wrong-headed on that particular issue?
Well, he's a rubber stamp vote for everything the left wants. That's why. I mean, he doesn't ask any questions. He doesn't push back. He doesn't stand up for Montana or for common sense policies. Whatever Chuck Schumer puts in front of him or the Biden-Harris administration has put in front of him, he rubber stamps, he signs, and moves on. So it's no surprise he's done that as well. And my campaign slogan from the beginning has been common sense. Montanans want common sense back from the government. They want a secure border, safe streets, cheap gas, cops are good, criminals are bad, boys are boys, girls are girls. Jon Tester has not voted for any of those things. As a matter of fact, as you said, he stood up actively supporting letting boys into girls' locker rooms. So Montanans don't like that. They're making that clear in the polls, and they're going to show us on Tuesday they don't like it.
He's voted 91% with Joe Biden, and via CNN, just in October, he would not say whether he's voting for Kamala Harris. Is there any chance he's not voting for Kamala Harris?
Well, you got to remember, as chair of the DSCC, he recruited Kamala Harris into the Senate in 2015. So, that's been his record with Kamala Harris, is bringing her into the national political spotlight. And then, of course, he's been a loyal supporter for every piece of Biden-Harris legislation there is. And 91% isn't actually really accurate. It's closer to 95%. But when you look at actually the bills that matter, when it actually matters, when his vote has been the deciding vote, it's been every single time. There's messaging bills, and Chuck Schumer is masterful at making sure he architects these messaging bills. So whenever possible, he gives these battleground senators an outlet to pretend they're independents and moderates. The truth is, every time his votes mattered, it's been a rubber stamp for the Biden-Harris agenda, and he's brought us to where we are today. So he's almost single-handedly responsible for all the bills that Kamala Harris has been the tiebreaker on for the last 3.5 years. And that's his voting record.
What does he say on the trans thing? Because, I'm looking at his record. He voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2023. It's very clear. He wants the boys in the girls' locker rooms, which is the Equality Act, in their bathrooms. Does he deny it?
Of course he does. Just like he had got up and walked off the show on your previous segment, the media wraps such a blanket around this guy. You can never actually get to the truth on it. His votes say one thing, and then he either says the exact opposite or refuses to talk about any of it. And the Montana media and the national media run interference for him on all these issues. They run interference for him on anything and prevent him from having to answer for the votes that he takes. So he doesn't say anything about it because that's his magic. He goes to D.C. and votes for these policies, then comes home and says nothing and lets the media do his work for him. And, of course, the hundreds of millions of dollars of dark money that come in the state do the work for him because he can't actually stand up and defend his votes. So he lets everyone else do it for him and hides behind $100 million of dark money that keeps him in office.
Now, what you were saying makes a lot of sense. Cheap gas, cops are good, criminals are bad. Boys out of girl sports, all of that makes perfect sense. And, keep the criminals out from crossing our southern border as well. His main way of attack against you seems to be the thing we discussed, and also that you're an outsider. He wants, because you grew up in a different state. What other state? I can't remember what state you were raised in.
Minnesota.
Okay, Minnesota, not too far away. So you were raised in Minnesota, and you only moved to Montana in 2014, around there. And so he wants people to think you're an outsider. Now, I know this from owning property in Montana. Montana's got a lot of so-called outsiders living in it right now. It's a small state population-wise, but have you been getting any feedback that actually is a potential problem for you?
Listen, it's something that they walk out nationally, the whole carpetbagger label. They want to label everybody with that because, it's an easy way for them to try to smear the opponent. The truth is, I think most Montanans understand that whether you come here, as long as you embody the values that Montana stands for and that Montana believes in, they're ready to vote for you regardless. And we have multiple office holders around state that were not born here. But, for Jon Tester, that's been his home base for years, runs back to, I've been here 3 generations. Okay, well, it's great that your great grandfather came here. Well, mine didn't. And after serving my country in war for a decade, and my wife also is a Marine Corps officer, she fought in the war. We met in the military. We chose to make this our home and build our businesses here and have our children here. So after 10 years of living here, creating hundreds of jobs here and being a part of the community, we were asked to consider running in this race, and we did. So I think, those attacks really kind of ring hollow, because a lot of Montanans that are now voters here, they weren't born here, and they're sick and tired of being told that their vote doesn't count, that their voice doesn't count, and that if you didn't come here, you shouldn't have a say in how things are run. And I think it's a dangerous line for the Democrat Party in Montana to keep pushing down, because what it does is it really alienates the people who are sick and tired of being told, if your birth certificate was in a different state, I couldn't control where my mother's womb was when I came out of it. That's not something I had control over. So the fact that it was in a different state, it wasn't something I could control, but I could control where I chose to live and raise my family and build my businesses. So, I don't think it's a particularly effective line of attack. I think Montanans have shown over and over again, they're more focused on the candidate, what the policies they stand for, than they are on where they happen to have been born.
On your agenda, just a couple of other things. You've pledged to end the woke social agenda infecting schools, teach kids how to think, not what to think, and saying it's important to have more choice in our education system. I know you got to run. Just lastly, you signed the term limits pledge. And what does that mean, Tim?
Well, it's important that we have a citizen government. I mean, that's what our framers imagined. I'm a history guy. I'm very passionate about our founding fathers and how they imagined our constitutional republic to function. Because, we always throw around these words democracy and, we're a democracy this, democracy that. Well, constitutional republic is actually what our form of government is. We're a constitutional republic. And the way that functions is actually very different than a pure democracy. And the framers imagined it that way. And one of the things that was key to that is citizen government. People who have life experience, business, soldiers, military, fathers, farmers, family men, who decide to go to government, bring a fresh perspective from the real world, which is, the Beltway is not the real world. It's like an alternate universe that people live in. Bring perspectives from the real world to government, make sure that government is acting in a responsive manner to the people, because ultimately it's of the people, by the people, for the people, and keeping that fresh blood in our government throughout. And I think, me signing the term limits pledge was one more nod in that direction to say, this permanent political class that we started to have in this country, where people go there and they stay there literally until they die in office. I mean, they'll be there for decades on end. I mean, Joe Biden's been running for president for like 40 years now. That has to end.
How did Dianne Feinstein?
Yeah, exactly. So having fresh blood in there with fresh ideas, and also remembering, with the perspective of a citizen, that the government works for us, not the other way around. The government is accountable to us, not the other way around. At least that's the way it's supposed to be.
This year, supply chain issues have been more prevalent than ever. Whether it's the result of natural disasters like Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, global conflict, or inflation, the impacts are being felt everywhere. While they sometimes are a minor inconvenience, delays in accessing essential medications can become catastrophic. The U.S. relies on overseas sources for more than 80% of its generic medications. So what happens when there are delays? Or what if supplies are cut off? How will you care for your loved ones and yourself? The Jase case offers peace of mind for you and your family in the face of delays, shortages, and disasters. This is an emergency medication kit containing 5 life-saving antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Simply complete a quick online evaluation to ensure you're prepared. The Jase case can also be customized with add-ons like ivermectin, EpiPens, and more. Don't wait. Consider preparing right now. Receive a discount on your Jase case by visiting jase.com and entering promo code MK at checkout. That's promo code MK at jase.com, ensuring you have the right medications exactly when you need them. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.